technology just right here before us. Drew, I'm just going to let you know we can hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear us. So whatever you were just saying probably wasn't safe for air. Hello, everyone. This is Trends with Benefits. This is our weekly roundtable tech podcast here from Digital Trends, where we all gather remotely, virtually, because we cannot be together. And that's kind of part of the theme of what we're going to be talking about today. We are broadcasting live on a number of platforms. So thanks for joining us. Drop in and let us know what you want to talk about in the comments. But really, it's going to be about unconventional conventions. I do give credit to Caleb Dennison for coming up with that one. But talking about conventions, they're not the same as they used to be, are they? Because of a pandemic. So where are they going? What is it going to be like? How do we want it to look like in the future? Or do we even want to go to them anymore? We're going to be tackling all of that and more. Well, let's start off by introducing ourselves. I'm Greg Nibbler, and to my virtual right, it is
Adrian Warner, aka Hot Nozzle. 3, 2, 1.
Hot Nozzle.
That was pretty. That's probably the best that we have
nice.
done. That was pretty solid. All right, Adrian, Hot Nozzle, Warner, and then on the virtual end of the roundtable, it is.
I am Caleb Dennison, aka The Whiskey Mist, aka Hot for Teacher.
I don't even know if I want to know the story behind that one.
Look, it's the first day of school here in Vancouver, Washington, and obviously it's all distance learning, and it's Zoom meetings and like classroom apps. And it's been just absolutely insane, bouncing back and forth between each one, hoping that they're getting in there. Teachers not starting Zoom conferences on time, not giving the actual time or date or timestamp for when that Zoom meeting is supposed to be happening. And then they're trying to get people to like right click on your iPad. You can't right click on an iPad, and it's just like and click the 3 dots to change your name. You can't do that. You have to go into like, it's the Zoom sort of like ineptitude it's comically sad is what it is. Anyway, it's been quite a day, and it's perfect for this episode because like doing this virtual stuff, like if you're not really good at it, it can be a catastrophe. So I can't wait to get into this.
Perfect. Yes. I want to know everything about that, whatever went on with that. All right. Going from Caleb, then we also have, then on the other end. Except he can't hear us, I don't think.
He's muted.
He's muted right now. You know what? See, this is another. Oh, there. Drew's here.
I'm actually here. Sorry. Yeah. On the end here, I am Drew Prindle, AKA Professor Prindle, AKA I'm one of those people that Caleb was talking about that can't figure out how to use Zoom, apparently.
That's why this is perfect. Like, we could not have planned this better to be talking about conventions and just gatherings and how hard it is to do right now, and then not have that. So, Drew, I applaud you for your, sticking to this, really committing to your whole gimmick that you're doing here. But we appreciate you being here. So, Drew Prindle, I don't know if you wanted to start it off, just kind of talking about where we're at right now. It's not like we need a huge history of conventions, but just like what's going on right now.
Yeah, so conventions have been going on for decades, right? Conventions, expos, just like large scale get-togethers where people, convene on an area and a lot of people like show stuff off. It's like a big show and tell that people pay for. That's been happening forever. But now as a result of the pandemic, it's kind of in limbo because obviously you don't want like large gatherings of people. But at the same time, there's like this kind of technological evolution that's been going on kind of in the background for the past 10 years, where like trade shows and other large events like this are increasingly becoming like less necessary, at least for the kind of ones that we go to, like CES and IFA. So one of the questions that we had on the sheet was like, why do these conventions exist? And I mean, they exist simply because they make money for everybody who's involved. They make money for the organizer of the event. They also create a lot of value for the people that exhibit and attend the event. So it's kind of this like mutually beneficial thing that everybody goes to because they get more out of it than they put into it. So the prime example of this is CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, which we talk about all the time here, which in many respects is kind of like the Super Bowl of conventions. It's millions of people, like thousands upon thousands of square footage of floor space that people exhibit on. And the CTA, the organization that puts on CES, makes a boatload of money off of it because they basically rent out this convention center and they sell space on the show floor to the exhibitors for a lot of money. Even for like a tiny little booth, a lot of these people have to pay like $5,000. So you can only imagine what you have to pay to get like the huge crazy ones that like Samsung and other big name companies put on. So the exhibitors pay that price because they suddenly, if by doing that, they get access to all of the people who are attending. And, they get to show off all their products and all their new stuff. But then also they're charging ticket prices for all the people who come there. So media people typically don't have to pay to attend, but all of the buyers and business people that are there to make deals, they have to pay money to attend. So the CTA is making money off of them, but they're making more money off of it because they're making deals while they're there. And also us journalists, it's a good value proposition for us because we're getting sweet early access to all of these new gadgets and technologies that we can then write articles about and get traffic for and make money off of. So it's good for everybody involved. But like I said, it's not really going to happen this year. Things are a little bit weird. I mean, not just CES, but like all conventions that happen in the physical world because of COVID. So we're just at a very strange point right now where some people are backing out and saying, it's not worth it for us if we can't physically be there and have people just like stumbling past our booth and saying, oh, this is cool. So yeah, we're in a very weird limbo state right now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely are. And I should say, I know for those listening on the audio podcast, you can't see, I've got the virtual background of, I think we determined it's the 2017 Digital Trends Live booth from CES. As I just kicked my camera, I just totally did that. But anyway, see, it's hard. It's hard to do this remotely and not kick your camera. But with that, talking about where we're at right now, and like you said, these events aren't going on. IFA would be something that's normally happening right now, and that's the big one in Germany. And Caleb, I know you would be there right now at that thing. Like, what is the value of going to one of those things?
Yeah, for those who don't know, IFA is basically Europe's CES, right? It's the biggest consumer electronics trade show outside of the US. And, it happens right around now every year. And unlike CES, which is not open to the public, IFA typically is. So it's not just the journalists and the buyers and the exhibitors that Drew just talked about. It's the general public got to go in and take a look at all that stuff. This year, they've kind of, they've chopped it down quite a bit. In fact, some big players like Samsung backed out entirely. There still is a physical event, but it's limited to a certain number of journalists. That's it. So it's, I can't even imagine what it's like out there right now. Usually thousands of people just descending on the Berlin Convention Hall all at once, and it's a beehive of activity. And in a way, I hate it, and I also love it. It's hard work, but it's usually rewarding. You look back on it fondly when you're done, making all the flights and everything. But they're trying to do some sort of hybrid thing where there's some in-person stuff and there's some virtual stuff. That's going to kick off on Thursday. We're going to see how that goes. But what I miss out on is being able to be there with the products, see them, touch them, in some cases, smell them. No, that's not weird. I like, and really what's going to be happening for many of us, it looks like this will be the way it is for CES, is we're only going to be able to see this stuff virtually through a camera. Normally I'm the guy, with the camera kind of showing things off and adding some commentary, adding some context, adding some, sort of unbiased, sort of leveled out opinion about what I'm seeing and how it compares to other stuff I've seen before, whether it's exciting, whether it's not, how it's promising. And that's really what I miss out on now, is all I can do is see something through a camera or read about it on a piece of paper. And then, I don't know, regurgitate it. Like, I think we can still lend some analysis, but from my perspective, what we're really missing out on is that eyes on the object thing, the thing that you can't get through a camera. Also, the best Chinese food I eat all year is in Berlin, believe it or not. And I'm definitely missing out on that too. The duck there is amazing. And I'm going to miss the Berlin duck.
I mean, there is that side of conventions too. I mean, going to them, I enjoy that experience. Although a lot of times though, it feels like you're running a race. So some of it's fun. Some of it's like exhausting. And you're like, why am I even here? What am I doing? At least that's how I run races. And then at the end though, you celebrate and it's a lot of fun. So I do like that aspect too. But as far as like the actual, value of these things, like you said, not seeing those products, that's a huge issue for what you do in particular and what we do for Digital Trends and everybody else that does something like that, whatever the product is. But then there's the other aspect of, can a lot of this be done virtually? And that's what we've seen, this huge shift. Obviously our show, we used to be sitting around a round table. Now we're all virtual, where we've been for I don't know how many months. It's forever now. But looking at it, from that aspect, and asking if people would even want to go to a convention right now. I saw some comments come through on our Facebook broadcast that we have right now, where somebody was just like, no, hell no. That they wouldn't want to go to a convention right now, no matter what. And I can understand that because just of the fact of there's the pandemic issue. But say that goes away, are people still going to actually want to go? Like, could this be the end of these massive conventions? Because it's now, for me, even the thought of being in a crowded room like CES, like walking through the halls there where you're bumping up against thousands of people, I don't know, seems kind of weird. But that's why, can these things go virtual? Adrian, what about you? How do you feel about this?
It's interesting to me because I feel like we're getting so used to this kind of like virtual experience, and the younger and younger generations are more and more used to it, right? So like people who are going to at least like maybe less industry focused conventions, but like like more fan based conventions, or like specifically like gaming conventions and things like that, they're kind of used to this environment. But like the thing that keeps coming up over and over, and when I was reading about the impressions that were made at the DNC and the RNC, is that people are like, there's still just no buzz. There's the lack of excitement. How do you generate that? And I think that conventions will need to come back in some way to do that, but I don't know, in what capacity. The thing I do like is that, people aren't flying around the world and, contributing to climate change during all of this. That's great.
True. Yeah, there's that, positive side of things. Drew, what about you? How do you feel about these?
I feel like we either need to not do these conventions or do them in person. Like, I think the virtual thing, like in the case of IFA and CES, it's just not going to work out. You like Caleb was saying, you need like the big benefit of these shows is getting hands-on time with these things, actually being there in the flesh, instead of just like looking at them through a virtual window and just being, oh, cool, I could have just watched a video. And the other thing is discovery. I think there's a lot of benefit for these huge conventions. You're just like stumbling through halls and they're kind of like purposefully confusing. And you happen to like encounter stuff that you wouldn't otherwise because you weren't looking for it. And those two things go away when you go virtual. So I think we just need to scrap it, save ourselves the trouble of trying to make them virtual and cover them and retool everything. Just put it on hiatus for a couple years, come back when this is all blown over. And yeah, man, I think the whole virtual thing is a lost cause. In some instances, yes, like you could do virtual concerts, but stuff where you really need to be there physically to touch things, don't even bother.
Yeah, there's no spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this stuff can get really awkward too. I mean, like, look at the RNC where they basically were yelling, screaming in some cases to, in a similar way that you might if you had a crowd that was getting amped up and amping you back up. There's this feedback loop that happens between a presenter and a crowd that obviously wasn't there. And instead, it just looks like some nut job wailing into an empty room, and that's not partisan politics. It doesn't matter which political party you're affiliated with. If you try to do that to an empty room, it's just going to be like, that's awkward. And we've seen how that kind of played out. And Drew is right. The discovery is a huge part of this. I remember one of my favorite stories is discovering the Willow breast pump. It completely like redefined what breast pumps could and should be. And I mean, it was truly revolutionary. And I was like, wow, how come nobody thought of this before? And really, I think it could just only have been invented, at that time. But they got discovered at, I think it was either Showstoppers or PepCom. They were exhibiting there, and they got a lot of attention, you know, and that really meant the success of that company right there, getting all that media attention, and exposing the world that this product existed and that it looked fantastic and seemed to work extremely well. That was huge for that company. It meant their success. And basically, you know, I mean, obviously there's a lot of noise happening at these conventions, thousands and thousands of exhibitors. And basically you're hoping to get lucky and catch somebody's attention and get your product announced to the world through a big platform.
Get the Caleb Dennison bump.
What's that?
Get the Caleb bump.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, but that's really not going to happen this year. In fact, I think that noise that is typically associated with an in-person event, I think some companies are realizing that, you know, they can just operate outside of that. Like, if there isn't, why would you try and compete with a bunch of news and press releases that are hitting the websites at a feverish pace and just basically burying everything? Why would you compete with that when you could just like have a separate event, you know, at a different time when not so many other people are having an event, and maybe actually increase the chance that you'll get noticed? And we're seeing that happen. You know, Samsung is having an event that they would normally have at IFA. They're doing it tomorrow, virtually. It's well outside of the actual IFA dates, and they're just sort of loosely associating it with the time frame that they would normally make an announcement. And I think we're going to see that from more and more companies. And with CES, it's a little bit different. Happy to explain why CES is such a high stakes deal, whereas other conventions are not. But for all the other ones, I think we're going to start seeing people kind of pulling out and doing their own thing.
And do you think though that that's going to be a permanent change for some of these companies? Like if like for the big ones, I totally get what you're saying for smaller companies and for people out there who, you know, no matter what the industry is, obviously our industry is tech, but I'm sure you have people watching who are in all kinds of different industries. And for smaller businesses, you're right. Those conventions are huge, whether they're going there to buy things or it's a supply thing, or they're going there to maybe get seen, maybe get heard. That one chance, you know, a big company comes through and wants to buy a bunch of stuff from them. That is important, but it can't happen right now. Like it just can't for the most part. So for the other ones though, for like bigger companies like Samsung, does Samsung need that? You know, do these huge companies, does Google need that? Does Apple, well, Apple doesn't, they do their own thing anyway. You know, do they, like, is this going to permanently change that? Because without those companies, without the Samsungs and the Googles, you can't have CES. Like it's not going to work because they're the ones that are paying the lion's share of that and bringing in a lot of people. So if they decide that, hey, we're getting more attention doing it this way and we don't have to go anywhere and we save millions of dollars in displays and all that, and we're still getting some products out there, why would they go back to it? I guess is what I'm thinking. Other than, you know, a few people to get their hands on it, maybe it's cheaper to fly a few journalists to them than send all this stuff down there.
And they're talking about that. And I think the answer to your question is it totally depends on how the next year or two goes. You know, with the bigger shows like IFA and CES, if they don't get the traction, if they don't get the buzz, if there's not, you know, people aren't getting jazzed about the products because they're not interacting with them in like an in-person sort of genuine way, they'll either try to solve that problem or they'll hop right back into the typical convention thing. I think once the pandemic passes and it's safe to do so, my guess is that we're going to end up going right back to the old model, unless this virtual thing is wildly successful. And yeah, they can save a ton of money and not fly a bunch of people in and not hire a bunch of people and pay for hotel rooms and food and schmooze and all that other stuff. Like, yeah, maybe they just bring a handful of select journalists to them instead. And they're doing that this year. That's definitely a possibility for this year.
I mean, there is the aspect too that it's fun for a lot of people. You go to the convention. You know, I mean, it can be exciting. It's cool. You're flying somewhere else. There's usually dinners and there's all that gets involved. You know, no matter who it is, people are getting wined and dined, and the schmoozing is a big part of things too. So
I know that they're handing out like gift cards so that you can like, you know, postmate your special little dinner and eat it in your little hole and pretend.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
That's so no.
It's just not the same.
Oh,
like
God.
I don't I don't want to sit in this
No.
room
Have
and
you ever
pour
tried to eat
myself-
with somebody else over Zoom? Like, it's so gross. Nobody
terrible.
looks good. Yeah.
Oh man.
It's not fun. Adrian, what are your thoughts on this? Do you see, I guess going from that, I'm looking at how much time we've got here, but talking about the virtual side of things. And there's a lot of events, the RNC, the DNC, some of these concerts, that are going on. And you mentioned maybe some of the younger generation that's getting used to this and working virtually and doesn't want to ever have face-to-face contact with someone. There's that aspect too. This may be where maybe not immediately, maybe, kind of our range, we want to do this, but coming up, I think that things could eventually switch to that virtual format. That's where I could see it going there 100%.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see somebody like actually take that first step and do that, because we just haven't seen any, like, we see a lot of startups that are like, I have this really great, meeting solution where we're all meeting in VR and it's cool. And it, like, the preview is cool and that doesn't seem to get adopted. So like, as soon as that actually happens and someone's like, you know what, we had a lot of success with it, we're going to try this weird mini virtual convention, I think it'd be fun to like experiment with. I don't think it's going to be widely adopted for a very long time unless we're forced to. And in that case, anything goes.
What if there's another one of these things? God, I don't even want to say that, but it's not going to be the first time in history. This is the last time this ever happens. So, and with the tech kind of catching up to it, that's one of the other things I want to bring up is some of the other tech that's being utilized right now that maybe isn't quite ready. But, we're not quite at Ready Player One yet, but there's stuff out there that people are working on that is along those lines. And you look at things like Facebook Horizon, which, I don't think we all want to go live in a Facebook virtual world, but they are kind of the biggest platform that's doing this. And in case people don't know what that is, that's Facebook's idea of where virtual spaces are going to go, where you have an avatar and you can go to you create your own little world. People can come visit your world and then you can go to theirs and then there's meeting spaces.
No lower half.
No lower half. Yeah. So it's very specific. So there's a joke there, but I'm not going to make it. Go ahead, Adrian.
Well, I was going to say, like, we're doing this in Animal Crossing, that's kind of a good example of like, this, you're right. This is actually happening. It's happening in Animal Crossing and Minecraft and things like that. So there's a real potential there. But it's kind of for people who are already in that world. Like I said, I want to see like businesses mandate this to be a thing and see how they manage it.
I mean, if you look at how quickly we're used to Zoom from our company, just because we've been using this particular platform for a while. So it was kind of weird, I think, for a lot of us at Digital Trends when it blew up. It's like, oh, that's just our meeting software. But for a lot of people, they had no idea, no experience doing anything like this. And look how many people have adapted to that quickly over the last several months. I mean, if this is a stretch for Horizon, there's a lot of infrastructure that's got to work for that. Everybody's got to get used to that. But I don't think it's that unforeseeable that like 2 years from now, that could be a huge, huge thing. Like price goes down, I could see people doing it. Caleb, are you going to set up a Horizon avatar? What do you think about this?
I mean, looking at it, I feel like I should. I should definitely set something like that up. I wonder what me presenting a new TV via Horizon with an avatar would look like. Look pretty funny, if you ask me. But I'm down with some of the possibilities here. I'm very glad that this year I'm not going to have to like walk 15 miles a day and rush to get from point A to point B. And, I can just switch rooms and, go into something virtual. What I am going to miss is what I am going to struggle with, I think, is trying to like handle this feverish pace that we get engaged with, over a big convention coverage like this and not get distracted by things around me. Also like my fridge is not as fancy as the circle bar, right? Like where I can hunker down and have myself a cocktail and a tasty bite and get a little bit of work done. Like there's just so many distractions this year. Honestly, I'm seriously considering just booking a hotel room not too far from here and holding up in that hotel room and covering CES from there. Just so I don't get distracted and I can order room service, and
it'll feel exactly the same then.
It will. Yeah, all I need
just
is
have to stay up too late, drink a little bit too much. The internet connection will suck a little bit, so it'll be exactly the same as it normally is.
Bottle it on purpose just to get that feeling.
Yeah.
If you see me doing video coverage in a terry cloth robe with a Frito pie in my hand, don't be surprised. Like, that could happen. I can totally see doing that.
You said there's no advantages to this. I mean, there's one right there. That's clearly, there's a benefit.
There are advantages. I just think there's so many disadvantages to not doing an in-person thing. I'm not excited to rush back into it by any stretch. But ultimately the question is are we making a huge turnaround? Is this like going to change things forever? Sure, I think it'll change it forever in some small ways, but I bet we all find ourselves back in Vegas in like 2 or 3 years.
I agree. Though I think one area where we might go virtual and kind of not go back is gaming expos, because it's so software focused. I could see a gaming expo being totally virtual. You log in with a VR headset and you can walk down some goofy looking hall and go up to a virtual booth, and then you actually can like play a game that expands into your VR. Like, that can all be done through software, right? You don't actually really need anything physical other than a controller and a VR headset maybe. But things where it's like actual like physical products that you might need to touch and experience, I don't think you're going to be able to have a substitute for that.
I mean, that's a good point, especially with the new consoles rolling out. That'll probably have VR capabilities. I would imagine they both. I'm sure Sony will. I would imagine Xbox will too. Yeah, I could see that. Like, next year's E3, is that really going to happen in person or any of the other ones that you're talking about? Yeah,
not.
Probably. Yeah, or probably not. I mean, why would they go back again, spend all that money? But it'll be one of those things where we do have to obviously wait and see what happens. But I think there's some things, like that are definitely changed forever because of this. Just because the mentalities are going to switch, and also you're going to have to get people used to being around that many people again. And granted, I'm thinking of CES, where it's thousands and thousands of people, or I don't even know how many. What is it, 180,000 or something attend that event, and all kind of crammed in. How many people are going to be comfortable with that for the years to come, just to get over it? I do miss it. I want to go to a convention. Don't get me wrong. I want to go anywhere. To be honest, I will go anywhere right now. But that aspect, I think, is going to be a big issue too, the psyche side of things. But it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out, and where it all goes. I guess, let me ask you this. For the three of you, would you go to CES this year if it was in Vegas, if it happened?
Hard no. Absolutely not. Honestly, I am fairly certain that I got COVID-19 in Vegas. We know that it was a spreader event. And I got hit like a truck. And normally on the last night, we all have fun, stay up late, go out late. I was in my bed from like 9 p.m. until it was time to go to the airport. And I missed out on a lot of fun, which was a big bummer. And everybody let me know how disappointed they were in me. But, honestly, like, it hit me like a truck. It threw me down hard for like 24 hours. And then, I got better fairly quickly after that. But
I think I called you like 4 times. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I think they left you a lot of angry messages. Sorry,
yes,
Caleb.
Many messages, many texts, many videos were sent. So I know what I missed. And I mean, it's a bummer, but that, look, we all came back from CES with some version of what's called the crud, right? Every year, it's like an opportunity to create a new bacteria or a new virus. I mean, it's just ripe for it, and even if we all, change over to fist bumps and masks, like, I don't know. It still seems like a really dicey situation. Vegas is just like the worst place. The ventilation's not great, I don't know. I could go on and on and on, but I won't.
Well, I know we've got to wrap up here quick, but Drew, would you go this year if it was happening?
Caleb summed it up perfectly. It was a gamble before, because you're basically walking into a giant human scale petri dish with everybody from across the globe just all exchanging germs. So you would walk out sick anyway. And after a pandemic, no, I'm going to let it cool down for a couple years before I go back in the flesh, I think.
Adrian?
Yeah, not till there's a vaccine on the market. Absolutely not.
Yep. That's kind of where I'm at too. It's like I miss it. I want to do it. I enjoy going to those kinds of things and like the action of it. It's, you know, it's high energy. It's exciting, but yeah, I'm not going to Vegas till there's a vaccine. No, not like this. I just couldn't go to a convention like that. But anyway, I know we've got to wrap up, and I'm always curious what people think too, because I know there's a lot of you listening out there that have opinions on this and who work in these industries or have something that you'd like to share with us. So you can either leave comments, obviously, on the live show, but you can always send us an email, podcast@digitaltrends.com, and hit subscribe to the show wherever you get audio podcasts, and share it, you know, send it out on Twitter, however you want to do it. Just let somebody else know about it. And we've got lots of back episodes where we have just discussions about this stuff that affects all of us, but also the involvement of tech in that. So it's always a lot of fun. And thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Trends with Benefits. We'll be back next week with another episode.